Julie King here with Bob Willard. Bob is an internationally renowned speaker and he's the author of The Sustainability Advantage. So he specializes in understanding how going green can help businesses be more profitable and improve their companies. Is that not right, Bob?
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, exactly right.
So a lot of businesses have the myth or they have the belief that green is about saving and doing the goodwill stuff, but it's not about improving the bottom line. What do you have to say to those folks?
Well, a lot of that impression, a lot of that baggage around the word green comes from their previous experience with it. So yes, there is something that you can do to give back as a company if you're smart about your footprints, your social and environmental footprints. But it's amazing the business value you can get from it. So yes, you can save money, and you can make more money, and you can avoid risks. And those are normally three things that businesses worry about. The difficulty is it's easy for us to say that that'll happen. It's more important that we are able to quantify it. So putting some numbers around those three claims that you can save money, make money, and avoid risks is usually the challenge that people have when they care about these things, but they don't know how to translate their passion into business terminology.
Well, and that's an interesting point because I was talking to a business owner the other day. The company went into a bit of trouble after the 2008 recession. He figures that if he was to replace all the windows and doors in his building, he'd have a payback time of 1 year, but the banks won't lend him the money because they're waiting for the recovery. So are there things that he can be doing to introduce this slowly? What can a business like this do?
It's amazing how much can be done without large capital expenses. People think they do have to go and borrow a lot of money. And yet if you take a look at the track record of companies, small companies, large companies, medium-sized companies, especially if they get their employees engaged in this, when they give their employees a chance to figure out easy things that can be done, they are amazed at how much can be done without any spending or payback periods that are well within a year. And when that happens, you don't need capital, you just need budget. And people normally have budgets for maintenance or normal upgrades. And if you can use that money to not only do those things in a smarter way, but also save money in the future, then this myth that this is going to cost an arm and a leg to be able to pull off is absolutely being proven false.
Well, that's great. So can you give me some concrete examples?
Yeah, I'll be talking more about one of these tonight, but there's a little manufacturing company in Cambridge that only focused on energy. For whatever reason, the owner of that organization, maybe it was because he had his first child, or he saw the Al Gore movie, or bought a Prius, or whatever. Anyway, he clicked into a different gear, and he decided to save a lot of money. And primarily on energy. He was concerned about carbon and climate change and so on. So over a period of 3 years, he had 42 projects that he initiated. The total cost of those projects was somewhere between $42,000 and $43,000. Not a lot of money. Got payback that was roughly twice that, so he was able to make a lot of money. And the average payback period was about 6.3 months. So if you take a look at that, and you figure out how he did that. I said, so how much did you have to borrow? He said, actually, I didn't borrow anything. It was just use the current budget. So I said, how much money did you get from governments to help you with all of this? He said, well, maybe $1,000. I forget. And the message I got from that was it wasn't a part of the equation. It wasn't a determining factor. Once you decide to do it, you can find amazingly easy things to do. In fact, some of his payback periods was within a week, just because he did something which was so effective at saving either fuel or electricity.
And is that really the key here, saving fuel and electricity? Is that what some of the key points?
It's the way to start. It's the way to start. Waste is the other one that's really, really important. It's amazing how much people are wasting in waste and how much so-called low-hanging fruit there is if they clean up their act and start to think of their waste as perhaps a new revenue stream. So people are now selling things that they used to put into landfills. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Water is important, but we don't charge enough for water normally for people to make a lot of big bucks by cutting down on their water. But the normal kinds of things that people do initially get the ball rolling, and then as they get employees engaged, customers engaged, important stakeholders engaged, it's amazing how much they can do. So I'm going to be articulating more of that tonight.
And so the company that you're talking about in Cambridge, if it's $43,000 for 42 to 43 projects, they're very manageable amounts of money, like $800 to $1,200 a project. Would that be about right?
Yes, although some of them were about $5 as opposed to $500,000. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Once you decide you're going to do it, and especially if you're smart about engaging the people who are working on the floor as to how to do it, and if they care about these things, perhaps for different reasons, stand back, because they will figure this out faster than any external expert could ever do it.
And Canada One often talks to smaller companies, 10 or fewer employees. This winter, we're about to hit a cold season. What are the top 3 things you would recommend that a really small company could do that's actionable to start cutting on the electricity and heating costs in their organization?
Yeah, it's the normal kinds of things that a home energy audit would encourage you to do. So there are the normal insulation kinds of things. There are the normal windows and thermal insulation that you get there as well. But there's also a little bit of data tracking. Find out where your energy is going, and that's where these blower doors and energy audits that you can have done in your installation or in your office really start to pay off. I thought at one time that my biggest problem was windows. It turned out it wasn't. When I had a home audit done, it was my fridge, which was my pride and joy. I had moved that thing all over the world, and it turned out that it was absolutely the biggest energy sucker in the house. So when you get some data, you can start to be more focused on where you can really get a big return on a small investment.
So CRT monitors for businesses that have hung on to those?
Or kilowatt meters or whatever, where you can start to really start to find out where the opportunities are as opposed to sort of our scattergun approach.
Okay, and I suppose the one advantage when you start to go green is it can be a part of your marketing message as well.
It can be. You need to be careful about it as to when you start to include that as part of your brand, as your persona, because people are kind of skeptical and they want to see a little bit of a track record on these things. But absolutely, it can become your differentiator in the marketplace. If you're smart about the way in which you build up credibility with your employees and then with your customers, it's a huge differentiator. It becomes a sustainability advantage.
And that's exactly the title of your book. Okay, so Bob Willard, author of The Sustainability Advantage. He's speaking tonight at the Business Advantage Forum up in Alliston, Ontario. And you can pick up his book, I'm assuming, at Amazon and Chapters.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob.